Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers just PH. Nope, my thing's playing. Great start. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I am your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me live in the Xfinity Mobile studio, it's Philly's #1 hockey beat writer and someone who would never have YouTube playing loudly while they're being introduced. It is Charlie O'Connor. What's up today, Chuck?
How's it going, Bill? That was a banner start to this show.
I have like 2 hours where I'm just doing nothing but preparing. And it's like, forgot to hit mute on YouTube, forgot what kind of show we're doing. It's not pregame. It's just a regular show. There are no games. But we have we've got a lot. Yeah, there's some Olympic hockey going on right now, actually. And that's where we're going to start because it's Happy Wawa Wednesday. It's time for the Wawa Big Deal. You got to get in on that Wawa Big Breakfast Meal deal. Any sizzly, any hot or iced coffee, and a hash brown for $5 every day from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. Today, the big deal is Olympic hockey. The men's tournament is officially underway. We got Risto and Finland in the first game. Slovakia beat them 4-1. Sweden and Italy playing right now. Shots were 22-3 with like 3 minutes left in the first, last I looked, but the score was 1-1. So maybe Italy can hang on. This is what I love about international hockey, Chuck. Like, the best on best, if we get Canada, USA, like the big showdown, that's going to be cool. I love these, like Sweden, a lot of good NHL players. Maybe not the favorite in this tournament, but they could absolutely medal. And then Italy, who's like, yeah, man, this is just a bunch of guys. They're getting killed in terms of, shots and chances and all that. But, hey, maybe they could hold on and just a bunch of guys can get their moment. I do very much enjoy this part of the tournament as much as, hey, man, when we get down to it, the medal round, it's going to be some real great hockey.
I do love the early upsets or the early. It's usually not even upsets. It's often upset scares. Today there actually was an upset. I think most people would have assumed that Finland would have won this game. Although Slovakia, they have their players. They have some legitimate NHLers, some legitimate really good players. But their starting goalie, who was the hero today, I mean, this is a guy who has an .884 save percentage in the AHL this year in Minnesota system, and he just seemingly had the game of his life. And like, I had somebody in my mentions today asking if the Flyers should try to trade for this guy. Maybe he's a diamond in the rough. And look, like, maybe he is.
Awesome.
Maybe, but it also is very possible that he just had a 1 in a million game where he stood on his head, because goalies do that sometimes. And that's honestly part of the fun of a tournament like this, a short tournament. We're obviously not in single elimination yet, but we'll get there. And it's just part of the fun of hockey where, any given Sunday, any given day, a goalie could stand on his head and a worse team could beat a better team.
Yeah, absolutely. And tomorrow we get some of the big boys playing, Canada and USA with their first games. It'll be Czechia and Canada. And listen, Canada, I'm going to talk about them in a second. On paper, I feel like they should just run away with this thing, quite honestly.
Do you really? I'm not with you on that.
Okay, all right, we'll talk about that. But Czechia, I realize it's different rosters, different groups of guys, but they've beaten Canada in World Juniors like 2 or 3 years in a row. And then Latvia without Rodrigo Abels against USA tomorrow. That'll be really fun. But the thing I wanted to get into is I'm just looking at Team Canada on paper, Chuck. And listen, again, upsets can happen. We've seen it. Goalies can absolutely be your downfall, and maybe that's where Canada runs into some issues. But this looks like the 92 Dream Team to me.
Does it really? Yeah, I'm not there.
I mean, it's their group of forwards is astounding to me. Like, guys entering or in their prime who are all-time Hall of Fame players. Like, look, their top 3 centers, absolutely insane. McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby at 3C. Like, he's still real freaking good. I'm just looking at this, and we can look side by side here, Chuck. I just feel like Canada should run away with this tournament.
Yeah, I'm in total disagreement with you. I think Canada, especially up front, if we're talking about the forwards, they have the best high end talent, to be sure. Their best players are better than any other country's best players, to be sure. But I feel like the United States team is very, very good too. And they could very easily beat Canada. Like I'm going on the Athletic, and Dom does his breakdown of the of team quality, of player quality, and Canada's expected win percentage is the tops in the tournament. They're at basically at 83.2%, which is fantastic. They're a great team. They're a very, very loaded team. They have a lot of great players. The US's projected win percentage is 82.1%. So yeah, Canada's better a little bit on paper, but I don't think it's a runaway. I really don't. I look at USA and I feel like this is a team that maybe there's a little bit more negativity around them, especially in internet circles, because they didn't pick some of the players we all thought they should have picked. But I don't think that means that the team they put together is bad. I think they have a lot of really, really good players, and I think it is very possible that the U.S. could beat Canada in one, maybe even two games in this tournament.
And we've seen it. Listen, they've beaten Canada in round robin, going back to 2010 when they lose the gold medal game, but they beat them in the first matchup. Last year at Four Nations, they win the first game, lose in the final. And I do think this is the closest the USA has been in terms of like powerhouse versus powerhouse. If we want to bring the lineups back up again, I don't think there's a question. Yeah, USA has some absolute star power, but they are built, I feel like, to win a specific game against Canada. And I just don't know if you can hold this team to like 2 goals when it comes down to it. The forwards, I think they're comparable, but Canada kind of runs away with it. The blue line is the strongest part of this of the US's lineup if we want to look at the defensemen. But we might be underrating a little bit of what Canada is bringing. Now, like, listen, you have Zach Werenski on like the quote-unquote third pair for Team USA. That's one hell of a freaking blue line, you know? But Makar and Taves, that's one of the best pairs in the league. They're together. Josh Morrissey, his worst finish the last 3 seasons in Norris voting is 7th. He's been, I think, 5th, 7th, and 4th the last 3 years. We all know how good Shea Theodore is. It looks like right now, at least according to Daily Faceoff, Travis Sanheim is going to be in on that third pair. We'll see, like where Thomas Harley and stuff slots in. But it's funny though. USA right now, they have Trocheck on the 4th pair with Noah Hannafin because they're pretty loaded up front as well. And we see, listen, I think Jacob Slavin was freaking awesome at Four Nations, like really opened some eyes in terms of what an actually good defensive defenseman is. It's an awesome group, but I don't know if it's like head and shoulders over, especially the top 4 or 5 guys that Canada has.
In terms of defense, I mean, I do like,
okay,
because I think my view is that like I think Kel Makar and Quinn Hughes are basically a wash. I think Makar maybe maybe a little bit better, but you can make a case that Quinn Hughes is better than Kel Makar. I think you can honestly make that case and not get laughed out of the room. I think Werenski and like I think we're gonna line this up like one by one. Hughes, Makar, that's a wash. Werenski, I think, is significantly better than Josh Morrissey. Okay, so there we go. Jake Sanderson, I put him around the same level, if not a little bit better than Devin Taves, who I really like. But yeah, around the same level. Jacob Slavin, and I'm basically going through and looking at the the Athletic because I can't look at this chart. Jacob Slavin versus Shea Theodore. Yeah, I'm probably taking Jacob Slavin there. Okay, going back up here, Charlie McAvoy against Colton Parayko, taking McAvoy. So yeah, like I on a lot of levels, I think the U.S. defense is overall, I would say, better than Canada's defense. Now, I think Canada's forward core is better than the U.S.'s forward core. Like Canada has Connor McDavid. They have, as you said, Sidney Crosby playing a 3C role, and he's Sidney friggin' Crosby. Like he scored a golden goal in the gold medal game once, and he's still real good. He was the best player in the world for like a decade plus, and he ain't that far below that right now. So yeah, at forward, absolutely. I think Canada has the edge, and that's where the most star power is, because forward is where, they're the guys who score the most goals, so they're the most recognizable guys. Then you have goal.
Then you go to goalie.
And while I do agree that if Canada does come to their senses and not use Jordan Binnington as their number one, it's not as dramatic of a disadvantage against the U.S. Like, they might not do that, and even if they do, like, I still think, I know Logan Thompson's having a really good year. I don't know if I put him on the same level as the guys that the U.S. has in goal. So look, if you made me bet on this, I would bet on Canada, but I don't like the framing that, like, Canada's head and shoulders better than everyone. I don't think that's true, at least on paper.
I do think, like, the one major advantage the U.S. should have is in net. That said, like, Logan Thompson, right now you go on Bet365, Logan Thompson's third in Vezina odds, and only two guys are ahead of him. They're not in the tournament, Sorokin and Vasilevsky. He is having that kind of year, but it now gets down to what sort of decision are John Cooper and Hockey Canada going to make. Like, are we just going to go with the guy who was way better than expected despite his NHL numbers in Binnington at Four Nations last year? He does win the tournament now, dual Hellebuck, but like, you have Logan Thompson just kind of sitting there, and he's one of the best goalies in hockey over the last 2 years. So I do think that could be a little bit of a wash. Listen, if Hellebuck is at the top of his powers, he's the best goalie, but he hasn't been. Now, the tournament can change everything. Like we just said about
Sure.
Binnington at Four Nations. That's not the guy who was playing for the Blues that showed up in that freaking gold medal game or trophy game, whatever the hell you want to call it. So it can go differently than your actual season. But I don't know. I guess I'm just heavier on Canada because of that star power up front. Maybe it's, listen, they have the two best players in hockey. Like, they have McDavid, they have McKinnon, and I do think a wash basically between Makar and Hughes, but that's 3 out of the 4 that I would, like, maybe start a draft with.
Okay. I mean, fair. They absolutely do have the edge in star power 100%. I'm just not, I'm not as bullish on Canada as you are, in the sense of, like, I think this is going to be tough for them. I'm not expecting them to just roll over everyone. I think the U.S. could win this, could beat them. I think they could win the gold. Like, they absolutely could. Do I think they're going to? Like, no. But again, like, you're asking me percentages. Like,
yeah,
I guess I view a Canada-U.S. game to be like 54-46, and it seems like you view a Canada-U.S. game to be like 70-30.
Maybe 65-35, 60-40. I wouldn't say it's a blowout. Like, I expect Canada to kill pretty much everybody else. But I think this is the closest the USA has come. Like, 2010, sure, but all right, is Zach Parise actually that good? Like, they do have some star power that is close to the level of Canada for the first time in a while. Before we wrap this up, Charlie, and go to our first break, did you see what the Devils' social media team did in this picture of the Hughes brothers? They cropped out Quinn Hughes from a picture in the Olympics. I think that's Brady Tkachuk in there as well. This was a big deal on social media for a few hours. However, Greg Wyshynski of ESPN.com and noted Devils fan said on Marek's show the other day, this is apparently a running gag for the Devils' social media team.
Yeah,
they do this regularly.
They've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
It's just that it comes off differently now that they had a chance to trade for Quinn Hughes and were not willing to pay the price. So now it comes off less as funny because he's the one Hughes we don't have, and more a little bit vindictive and, just maybe not in the best taste given the situation.
All I can think is, joke or not, can you imagine how that would go over here after everything that unfolded in terms of, like, seemed a foregone conclusion? Quinn Hughes was going to the Devils, and then suddenly, like, yeah, Billy Guerin used to play for the Devils, but he's actually he's running Minnesota now, and he got him, and the price was steep, but you're also getting at worst, the second best defenseman in hockey. You pay it up every single time. Can you imagine how that would go over here? I got pissed when the Flyers used the "Hungry Dogs Run Faster" Stoutland quote in a post before the game at the link. I can't imagine how I would react to this.
Yeah, and people would be mad, but my understanding is the Devils fans are real mad right now.
Yeah.
I just think I just think that is kind of a it's kind of a running theme across social media in general. Fans are mad this year. I had somebody mention that like Carolina fans are apparently livid at the Hurricanes. So maybe fans are just real mad this season.
I guess that. Man, I know like they haven't had all the postseason success. I would kill to be the Carolina Hurricanes. All right,
It seems fun.
it does. Just like playing 2-3 rounds of playoff hockey every year. That sounds like a great time. All right. On the other side, we are going to look back at some of Danny Briere's multi-year contracts, the extensions he has signed players to. Try to see if we can glean any information about what he might be up to coming up to the trade deadline and coming up to July 1st this year. But we got to take our first break. All right, it's time to talk about Elkin Chevrolet, because Elkin Chevrolet is run by three brothers. They're real brothers, local guys, and they are big Flyers fans. So if nothing else, you know that they're loyal. And right now they're putting on a President's Day sales event, and the deals are bigger and better than ever. If you need a truck, they've got you. If you're looking for an SUV, they have that too. Every vehicle comes with the kind of service that makes you feel like part of the Elkins family. But do not wait. These President's Day deals are only here for a short time. So swing by Elkin Chevrolet on Route 73 South in Marlton, New Jersey, and get in on the deals that are just plain honkin' good. Elkin Chevrolet, real brothers, real deals, and a whole lot of that honkin' good service. Elkin Chevy, together let's drive, and together let's go Flyers. Everybody's got their favorite hard tea. It is the cool thing right now. But have you ever turned the can around to read what's inside? Well, most of the time you can't, because the others won't tell you what their tea is made of. And while others hide what's inside, Crooked Tea brags about what they've got, because Crooked Tea brews real USDA organic tea for real flavor with zero sugar. There's no fake junk hiding behind the label. What you see is what you drink. So next time you're at the store, flip that can. And if you can't find the ingredients, just put it back on the shelf and then grab a Crooked Tea, zero sugar, real tea, and fully transparent. Philly recognizes real. Don't drink that fake stuff. I just served a bunch of these at a holiday party I had. They were a huge hit. People love them. They come in a bunch of flavors. I'm partial to the raspberry. Check out what suits you best and crack one open. You know what you're getting, because it's all on the can. Why drink the fake stuff? Crooked Tea, the only thing better is a strip sack in the Super Bowl. Visit crookedtea.com to find a store near you. Go Birds, and let's go Flyers. All right, Chuck, I want to take a look at some of the multi-year contracts Danny Briere has handed out, because as we're going to see, he's got a few things to take care of this summer. Not the most pressing needs when you look at the amount of team control and the number of guys they already have signed up, but he does have some work to do this summer in terms of getting some players signed. So first thing I want to do is go back and look at the contracts Briere has signed guys to keep them around over his few years as this team's general manager. Obviously, he just signed the Dvorak extension, like a month ago. Yeah. 5 years, 5.15. A number of different trade protections in there. Full for 2 years. 20 team no trade year 3, year 4 5 team, and then year 5 no trade protections. Cam York 5 years. I feel like this was a pretty good one. And Dan Vladar. We'll start with the first 3. That this is the only guy I think on the list that wasn't a re-signing. He gets him in free agency 2 years at under 3.5. He's got an 8-team no trade both years. Just looking at this group of contracts before we move on, they're his most recent, going back to last summer. Do you think we can kind of gain any information about the way these are structured?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything where you can like lump these 3 together and say this is what we learned. The York one is the most interesting to me, just because They could have, I guess, went longer. They could have tried to go longer. They went 5 years, and they got him on a good cap hit for those 5 years. But it's just interesting because of the age that he'll be when it expires. It's just interesting what it says about Cam York. And it's also interesting that, like, York, he gave an 8-year deal to Travis Konecny. He gave an 8-year deal to Owen Tippett. He did not give a 7-8-year deal to Cam York. Perhaps that says something about what he views Cam York as in terms of quality of player, that he's more of a middle of the lineup player as opposed to somebody who is a top of the lineup player. Perhaps that is a bit telling on that front. The Vladar contract, that's just what it costs to get him.
Yeah.
You give a guy 2 years, maybe he wanted 3, maybe the Flyers would have wanted 1, you settle at 2, whatever, you come to a cap hit agreement, boom, you're done. So that's just, you pay a guy what you need to do to sign him. And obviously that's looking like a great signing, looking like Dan Vladar is a quality starting NHL goalie, like quality number 1, maybe not elite, but certainly passable in terms of being a guy who can take 50, 55 starts. So great signing there by Danny. And then the Dvorak signing, we've talked about this ad nauseam. So, that's a contract where the way it's structured, it's almost like they wanted it to be 3 years. He wouldn't take 3 years. They had to structure it in a way where it's like they're going to try to backdoor their way into a 3-year deal. I still don't love the deal. My thing is, maybe if you would have played hardball, like you didn't have to sign him in early January. You could have been like, nah, we're only going to give you the 3. Let's talk again in February and see if you cave. And then, if the team falls off a cliff the way they did, maybe then you're in a different position. You don't even necessarily want to give him that contract. I don't think much would have changed. I think they still wanted a plug-in center in case they can't solve the center problem as quickly as they would hope they can. But hey, situation changes. Maybe it costs a little bit less. Instead, they sign him very quickly. They give him 5 years. I might have tried to wait and see what's behind door number 2 and maybe gotten, a lesser term or less money or whatever. But they wanted to keep Christian Dvorak, so they gave him the money they had to give him to keep him, basically.
Maybe see how he looks away from Trevor Zegras having a career year before you hand him a 5-year contract that kicks in after he turns 30 years old. The thing that strikes me about, Dan Vladar, 8-team no trade in both years, and we've talked about the Dvorak trade protections. Briere hasn't been, no, we're not giving them to anybody in these deals, but there aren't a ton. There aren't a ton of the, locks or shields or whatever you want to talk about on Puckpedia next to these contracts. And I do think this can tell you what he thinks about the structure of the team. Like you said, yeah, we wanted a 3-year deal with Dvorak, and guess what? Year 4 of this deal, 5-team no trade. Year 5, there's no protection. And even Vladar, all right, we really don't know what the goalie situation is. If this works, cool. We don't want to send you anywhere. And if maybe some of our young guys break out, you have the 8-team no trade list, but that leaves 24 teams in the league that you're 23 because the Flyers are one of them. That you could potentially deal him to if you wanted, especially in the second year and as he's approaching another UFA status. I feel like we can glean a little bit about how he sees where this thing is going, based and how ready he expects other players to be to take these positions based on maybe some of the term and the trade protections.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think it probably does to a degree. I would say that Danny probably is trying to prioritize future flexibility, knowing that he is nowhere near at the point with this team where guys are set in stone. He wants to give himself the ability where if a trade comes around and a team's asking for some guy who he might not even want to trade, he wants to have the ability to theoretically trade him if that means shaping the roster the way he wants to. So I think you're right on the money there. It's certainly a priority for Danny to keep his flexibility. I will say that it's easier now to avoid giving out trade protection, given the fact that we're not in a stagnant cap era anymore.
Yeah.
And given the fact that the Flyers are rebuilding, so therefore they're not slammed up against the cap. But Chuck Fletcher gave out too many no trade clauses. That's undeniable. But one of the reasons why he had to is because they were a cap team, so they didn't have a lot of flexibility, and the cap wasn't going up, so there just wasn't that much space available. So it became, well, if you want to fit these guys, rather than give them an extra $200,000 a year, you have to give them the no trade clause to get the deal done, because otherwise it's not going to work because no one has any money to spend under the cap because the cap isn't going up. Danny is operating under more favorable circumstances because the ceiling is going up and he's not, at least right now, he's not managing a team that is slammed up against the cap ceiling.
These next few contract extensions and signings he's made, like Kate's 4 years, $4 million a year. Yeah, understood. He's nice player, no trade protections. I wouldn't necessarily call him a core piece, but he's not someone you're like, got to get him out of here. He is a useful player. Obviously, the TK, we talked that to death at the time. The 8 years, full no move, full new trade. There's a couple other, we'll talk about Hathaway in a little bit. Brink, he's an RFA guy. You give him the 2 years so you don't have to negotiate every single year. But the Tyson Forster next one, this is an interesting one to me because when you talk about the Cam York, like 5 is at least, like that is a decent amount of time. I know we quibbled if we called it long-term or medium-term contract, but I think over 4 qualifies as at least a semi-long-term. Tyson Forster, you were probably hoping to lock him up a little longer. And now he's in a position, listen, he could come back next year, absolutely kill it, continue scoring at the pace he was scoring at. Now you got to come up with a big payday. But you start to see why guys don't always bet on themselves. And, a Jack Hughes signs away his prime for well under what market value is going to be. And look at Jack Hughes, all the time he has spent injured. Forster hadn't really had injury problems, but now he hasn't played since December, and he's probably not going to play until next training camp.
It's a reasonable point, Bill, because when Forster signed that contract, my first thought was, Flyers might regret not going long-term, not paying up and finding a way to get that to be a 6, 7, 8 year deal. Now, he got off to the good goal scorers start, but you're going to look at those numbers and you're going to say this year was basically a wash for him, that he didn't do much this year to increase the amount of money he's going to get on a long-term deal. Now, you're right. Maybe next year he blows the doors off, scores 40, and then he's going to be in line for a massive raise. But the Flyers, by signing Forster to a short-term deal, they were essentially, and it's one of those things where there's no bad outcome. You know, the bad outcome is he blows up, and then you have to pay pay a really good player, but you're happy you have a really good player. But on the flip side, if he doesn't blow up, then you didn't overpay him for something that he didn't ultimately do, at least during that run. And then you get him for cheaper now, and you're not paying him dramatically more in 3 years when you have to give him the long-term deal to keep him at that point. I was rooting for him to have the breakout. He still might next year, but at least so far, it's looking like this may not be a contract that bites the Flyers. That said, I'm not going to pat Danny on the back for this one. Oh, wow, you had the clairvoyance to realize that he was going to bust his shoulder on a slap shot.
No, that was just happenstance. Tyson Forster had been mostly healthy throughout his NHL career, and he probably thought, yeah, man, I'm going to wait this out and get my big payday and not sign away my prime, and maybe it worked out a little better for the Flyers. And compare that, skip down to Owen Tippett, who they gave the semi-big deal right away. Now, looking back at what the cap situation was and what it's become, $6.2 million, considering the way he has played for a lot of this season, the most consistent hockey of his career, looks pretty good. There is a 10-team no-trade list, I think kicks in next year. It's 10 teams in years 3 to 6 of the deal. So he wasn't old enough, I think, to get the no trade starting when he signed it. You have to be UFA age to get the no trade. But I do find that part interesting. When you talk about structure, all right, we're giving you the deal and it's a sizable chunk of money, but it's not going to be restrictive in a few years. It's still a little bit of a tryout. We're giving you the deal because we want to keep you, but also there's nothing tying you here. Even a 10-team no trade isn't the most prohibitive thing in the world.
No, if they really want to move Owen Tippett, they can. There's a reason why we talk about him on the show as a potential option if the Flyers have an opportunity to get a 1C or a top pair defenseman, that Owen Tippett could be the piece that brings that back because he does have trade flexibility. It's not like he's as a Travis Konecny where he can pick his destination, and he's a good enough player with unique enough skills that teams that have those high-end talent guys that they're willing to move might be intrigued by Owen Tippett. I just think with this contract, and it's funny because I think hockey front offices are at this point, and I just don't think fans are at this point yet. Fans just have still yet to collectively grasp that $6.2 million is not that much anymore.
No, like that
It's
is a
really
middle.
not.
That's a good middle six guy. Like
Yeah.
cheap. That's a cheap good middle six. Like the numbers are going to start to get astronomical as we see more and more top end guys resign. And you still every now and then will get comments like, they signed him to the monster deal. It's like, yeah, 8 years is a hell of a commitment. But 6.2, like it's not 2018 anymore. Like that's not the cap. That's not the cap atmosphere we're in. Just overall, looking at this list, I would say the ones that really stand out in terms of maybe negatives, it's Ivan Fedotov, but we knew the circumstances at the time. He could go to the KHL, get about $3 million. So if you wanted to keep him around, and honestly, cap space didn't really matter at the time, you did what you did, and
they did get out from under the deal.
Yeah, and they get out from under it in the second of the 2-year deal, so it doesn't really kill them. I do want, like, Ryan Poehling, hell of a deal, man. Keeping him around got you Trevor Zegras at the end of the day. I will point to Hathaway and Seeler, and we're going to talk about Seeler maybe in a mini pod or something coming up later in this show. Looking at these two deals, they just really stand out. Like, how do we feel about those extensions now?
Well, it's funny. I think based on you lumping those two together, I think we have very differing views on the Nick Seeler contract. But the Garnet Hathaway deal, like that is a deal where if Danny Briere's tenure as Philadelphia Flyers general manager ultimately is a success, and he's still doing this 10 years down the road because the Flyers turn into a legitimate cup contender and he is the guy to lead the Flyers out of the wilderness, I bet if you interviewed Briere 8 years down the road and said, like, what's a contract you learned from a mistake on? And he'll be like, probably the Garnet Hathaway deal. I probably fell in love with the player and ignored the fact that guys like that at that age can fall off a cliff quick. I really think that's what happened. I think he just fell in love with the player. Probably fell in love with like the guy too, because Garnet Hathaway was such a good dude. He's a really good dude in that room. They probably loved what he was doing with, in terms of mentoring young players and keeping things light, but also on track in terms of intensity. And they probably just like got a little irrational. They're like, he's still good. He'll age fine. He looks like his usual self. And then they got burned. And now they have one more year of a guy who has like 4 points this year. Is he even at 4 points?
It might be 2.
It's not good. So I would hope that Briere over time will look at that deal as a cautionary tale for himself to like, don't do that in similar situations. Assume that the aging curve is probably going to hit, especially when it's a guy who isn't essential. Like I get if you're going to have to take look, let me put it this way. I get it if, let's say you sign Trevor Zegras and his contract expires at age 32 and he's still real good. Like, you might have to take the risk and re-sign him to a 5-year deal because he's such a big part of your team and you're a cup contender. It wasn't going to kill you to wave goodbye to Garnet Hathaway. They just really liked him and they kept him. So that deal, that's a mistake. The Seeler deal, like you really think that's a big mistake?
No, not a big mistake. I think maybe just like 4 years seemed long at the time, especially like it's an extension, I think prior to or right after the deadline. So it's basically like adding a 5th year to his time, and a no trade clause for the first 2 that expires July 1st. I do think that tells you, hey, we're not sure what the hell this decor is, and if in a couple of years we have guys pushing him out, great, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I just feel like extending a 3rd pair defenseman. I realized when he signed it, this metrics were like, actually, he looks like a decent 2nd pair, like shutdown defenseman. Signing a guy who his primary calling card is blocking shots for 4 years to almost $3 million isn't like the best use of assets. That said, it's not going to hurt them. I just feel like that was the conversation at the time, and now I'm looking, man, we still don't have a person to take Nick Seeler's spot. Is he that important?
Yeah, but I guess that's my answer, is that you're saying it out of frustration. Man, we really don't have a person to take Nick Seeler's side. And I'm saying it out of like, I'm kind of glad they kept Nick Seeler because they don't have someone to take Nick Seeler's spot right now. Like, who do they have in the system right now? Like, do you really think Hunter McDonald is as good as Nick Seeler right now. Ty Murchison, if he was healthy, like Nick Seeler to me is still a perfectly solid number 4, number 5 defenseman. And he had, you gave him the no trade protection for 2 years, but this is year 2. Like now, in theory, if Oliver Bonk is ready and can push people out and you have to move Nick Seeler next season, you can. He's got no trade protection and he hasn't dropped off. Like to me, this deal has aged pretty well because you didn't get to a point where it was like, oh God, we have to dump this guy and we can't because he's got a no trade. And now you're at the point where if you need to trade him next year, you will still easily be able to because he's still a good player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I guess frustration isn't how I put frustration with the fact that they don't have anyone better than him, I guess, is more than the thing. And the idea, like, well, is Hunter McDonald or Ty Murchison? And I think Murchison's still hurt. I'm not positive.
Yeah, he is. He's out for the year.
Like, it's not the idea that they're better. It's the idea that I want to see what they are so we can start making more decisions. I just feel like we're at a point where we haven't made enough decisions on future guys. Like we should be moving this thing along a little faster, but obviously if they are in position to win games and challenge for the playoffs like they thought they were, there is going to be that trade-off of, we're going to have some vets out there who are just steady.
Yeah. And I guess before we go, because I do want to make a point on this, like, I guess where I'm at is I would be frustrated with this deal if right now the Flyers had 2 or 3 top 4 potential defensemen sitting down in the minors being blocked by Nick Seeler. But they don't.
Yeah.
Like the only guy they have is Bonk, and he missed the first 2 months of the season and still isn't quite yet ready for a call-up. So it's not like Sealer's blocking anyone. So like it's not like the wing situation where I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like Bump's healthy and you don't have enough spots for him to get a shot. Like Forrester had to get hurt for Barkey to have a shot. Like that to me is a logjam. My fear with Seeler was twofold. It was with signing Seeler. Number one, is he going to block young guys who I think are ready for the NHL and can have a serious impact? Number two, it was you're signing a guy in his early 30s to a 4-year deal. Might he fall off a cliff? Well, the first thing, no, they really don't have anybody banging down the door to push him out. So I'm kind of glad he's there because you can pair him with guys like Jamie Drysdale and help them develop, who you do actually care about what they are for the future. And then number two, he hasn't really dropped off that much. He's still a quality player. And now in year 3, year 4, like if you need to move him, because then suddenly you do need to clear spots, I think you get value back. I think you get a 2nd or 3rd round pick back for him if you really wanted to move him.
All right, we are way behind on the break schedule. On the other side, we're going to look at what Danny's got to do this summer, but we need to take that second break. Let me tell you how my morning starts each and every day. It starts at my Wawa. Now, this is an ad read, but everybody watching by now has to know how much I love Wawa, and Wawa has given us yet another reason to love them. It's the $5 Big Breakfast Deal. For just $5, you can get any sizzly breakfast sandwich, any size hot or iced coffee, and a hash brown every morning from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's right, a breakfast sizzly, a coffee, and a hash brown for just $5 from your local Wawa. That's value, that's convenience, and that's deliciousness all together in one deal. And while you're picking up your coffee, check out the brand new Caramel Chocolate Craze coffee flavors. You can try caramel, try chocolate, or mix them together for a sweet treat that will start your morning off right. The $5 Big Breakfast Deals for a limited time and exclusions apply. See Wawa.com for details. No need to overthink breakfast. Just grab and go and get on with your day. You gotta have a Wawa, and let's go Flyers. We all know the feeling. You walk into a jewelry store, you're trying to pick out something special for your partner, and suddenly you realize you're in over your head. You're thinking, what's the difference between all these diamonds? What if my partner doesn't like it? All I know is I'm about to spend a bunch of money, and I don't know what I'm doing. It's super stressful, and that's why working with Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design has been such a game changer. From the moment you walk in, they treat you like family. There's no pressure, no pushy sales, just people who actually listen, and then they help you figure out exactly what your partner will love and design a completely custom piece right there in-house. And right now, gold prices are over $5,000 an ounce, so if you've got old jewelry sitting around, Bucci's can help you sell it for cash, refurbish old pieces, or turning it into something brand new. 30 plus years in the game, Philly's #1 jeweler with over 1,000 5-star reviews. So whether you're buying new or turning old gold into something special, visit Bucci's Jewelry and Design at BucciJewelers.com and tell them the guys at PHLY sent you. All right, let's jump in. Let's jump into Rufus's phone booth and travel 141 days into the future. July 1st, 2026, Charlie, the new league year. Yes, a lot of business can get done, like at the draft. That's at the end of June, but I want to use July 1st because that's when all the options are open for some of the things I want to talk about. And the contracts that could be signed or need to be signed this summer, and think a little about what Briere might do. I don't think it's crazy to say the number one priority is Trevor Zegras. Now, he's a restricted free agent, 2 more years of team control. I guess you always have to be wary of an offer sheet, but I think the hockey men still hate him, so that's never going to happen. Would you say he's got to be the number one priority this summer?
Yeah, I think he absolutely is. I mean, Drysdale's important. Don't get me wrong, but Zegras is a guy where he's one of your 2 top scorers. He for most of the season was kind of running away with the honors of being the top scorer. He's broken out. We may not get to it in this show, but he's even kind of stepping up as something of a young leader on this team. He's very clearly part of the social circle. He's a popular player in that room. Rick Tocchet really likes him. Yeah, I think Zegras has very much established himself as, if not a core piece, and I think you might be ready to call him a core piece, but if he's not a core piece, he's definitely a guy you want to keep around. And he's a guy you want to keep around for longer than a couple years because he's a real good player, and the Flyers don't have enough real good players. So keep around the real good player I wouldn't say you stumbled into because you made a real good deal to get him, but you don't want to lose that guy quick because right now he's looking like a home run. So you don't want to, skip second base on your way around the base pass. Like, just cross home plate, be done with it.
Yeah, I do wonder if it ends up being like, all right, man, here's the 8 years, no move, you're set, or if it is more of a Cam York 4 or 5 year deal where it's all right, well, we want you around, but we're not ready to give you like the keys to the city or anything. I think that is worth monitoring as we approach July 1st, but I do think it's pretty obvious he's going to be around. You don't hit a home run on a trade like that, and like you said, then skip second base and get called out. The next guy on the list I think is interesting though. Bobby Brink. He's an arbitration eligible RFA, but he's got 2 or 3 more years of team control. We've talked a lot about how maybe he's one of the odd men out amongst all these wingers. Martone could be coming as soon as the spring, if not, next fall. Alex Bump, you assume, is going to get a shot at some point. Denver Barkey's established himself. It just feels like Brink's the guy. But could there be, if he's not just like, signed and traded this summer or whatever, if he comes into camp next year with a new deal, is there more value in a guy with a little bit of term that it's, yay, he's part of a package, and also you're not going to lose him in a year. He's not going to be an RFA. You're not going to have to be negotiating with him and evaluating him. Do you think there could be something to, even if they plan on trading him, maybe you give him 2 or 3 years rather than just like the 1 and count down the years of team control?
Yeah, well, I don't think I would give him a 1-year deal. I think I would probably, I would be more into giving him like a 2 or 3-year deal, but I could see the logic in giving him a Cam York deal. My concern with Brink is less about, like, I like him as a player. They should obviously keep him. If they're not trading him for something of greater value, they should obviously keep him. But it's more that when you get into more and more years, like if you were to give him a 6, 7, 8-year deal, like you could still give him an 8-year deal this year up until the end of the summer.
Yeah.
So he could still get 8, for this contract. To do that, you would have to give him a lot of money. Like the AAV would have to be high to, for that whole thing to work out. And I'm just not sure he's ever going to be a good enough player to justify the AAV that would come with that long of a deal. And the longer the deal gets, the more you probably have to give a guy in his mid-20s to get him to sign that kind of deal. So that's why I probably lean more towards, a Noah Cates deal at longest. But, if you can get him, to a 5-year deal at a reasonable cap hit, and maybe that makes him more attractive to teams as a trade target, I can see the logic in that. I would probably just lean more towards giving him like a 2 or 3-year deal.
Yeah, I think even if the idea of like a guy with term, I think once you start talking 5, 6, 7, like That's insane. That's insane for a non-core piece. You should not do that. There's some other RFAs like Drysdale will be interesting. He's probably near the top of the priority list. Then there's guys like Andre, who the hell knows what's going to happen with him.
Yeah,
Grebenkin,
he might just get a 1 year deal. Like
Yeah.
I could easily see them giving Andre just a 1.
Grebenkin, RFA, and there's no UFA years in sight. He's being used primarily as a fourth liner this season. I don't think like that's the highest priority. Sam Ersson, though, arbitration eligible RFA, final year before he becomes an unrestricted free agent in the summer of 2027. If he sticks around, how the hell do you think that negotiation goes?
At this point, unless he has a really strong finish to the year, I think there is a decently high possibility that he just straight up doesn't get qualified. So
that's a real possibility.
So, I mean, like, I think we have to prepare ourselves for that possibility where they just kind of wave goodbye to him, because he will be in line for a raise. Understandably, he's played a lot of games. Yeah, he hasn't played well in most of those games, but he's played a lot of games, and games get you paid. I am skeptical that they will qualify him. If they qualify him, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like qualifying him in anticipation of shipping him somewhere. Unless he has a real strong finish of the year. Like the book is not closed on Sam Ersson yet. No. I know they really like him as a person. And if he were to have a really, really strong finish of this season, maybe they do go right back on the Sam Ersson carousel for one more go around. But right now, like, I think their head is where their head is at is we gave him this year. Dan Vladar showed that you can succeed in this system. You can succeed with this goalie coach. It's not on the defense. It's not on the goalie coach. It's not on the atmosphere. It's on the goalie. Ersson is proving that he can't be part of this long term. And maybe he figures it out somewhere else. But I mean, if he finishes the year in the 860s, like, I don't know how you can bring him back.
If you want to be the team playing important games down the stretch, you can't throw away 1 out of every 3 the way they have for a lot of this season with Ersson and then expect to like be in it come March and April. All right, let's get this show a little bit back on track. I want to talk about the extension eligible guys coming up, guys with 1 more year that can sign as of July 1st, and the players who are most likely to become UFAs. But let's take that last break. This April, my wife and I are headed to a friend's destination wedding all the way over in Italy. This is going to be an expense, but we're really looking forward to it, and we are starting to save up for this trip. If you've ever watched the show, you know maybe I'm not the most financially responsible, but managing your money doesn't have to be a struggle this year because you've got Monarch. Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool designed to make your life easier. It's my go-to tool for a New Year's financial reset, reviewing spending over the holidays, setting fresh budgets, and getting ready for 2026. With automated weekly money recaps and tracking progress towards future financial goals, it's easier than ever to stay financially fit in the short and long term. And it's helped users save over $200 per month on average after joining. This new year, achieve your financial goals for good. Monarch is the all-in-one tool that makes proactive money management simple all year long. Use code PHLY at monarch.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code PHLY. Let's talk about Togo. Do we really want Matvei Michkov playing goalie? No, it's not worth the risk, time, or money. It doesn't make any sense. You want to keep your stars focused on what they do best, and the same applies to your business. For small and mid-sized businesses, competing with bigger companies isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. With competition heating up, you can't afford to fall behind. AI goes way beyond ChatGPT, and it gets overwhelming fast. That's why having a trusted guide like Togo matters. Togo streamlines your operations by handling customer service, accounting, order management, logistics, admin, data entry, and even complex multi-step processes without the cost of building it all in-house. Every engagement starts with free process mapping, and Togo doesn't bill a dime until the real work begins. Programs start as low as $1,000 a month and are built for scale without breaking the bank. Visit harnesstogo.com and mention PHLY for a free operational assessment. All right, Chuck, let's talk about the guys who could potentially sign extensions as of July 1st. And the most interesting one to me is Matvey Michkov, obviously mired in this sophomore slump. We will see how he finishes out the year with the 26 games left once they come back from the break. But coming into the year, I was at least saying, "Hey, man, July 1st, here's your 8 times 10. Thanks a lot. Get it done." I really don't see that happening now. And like you said, they have, I think, till September 15th. If you want to sign a guy for 8 years, you can do that up until that day. But so perhaps, he has the huge summer, shows up, great shape, looks like he's going to be a star. They could do it all the way up till the 15th. But I feel like it's not the pressing need I thought it was, 5 months ago.
I would be shocked if they sign him to a deal in July, like July 1 or July 10th or whatever. I would be blown away. And I think it really, look, I know this is this whole out of shape thing has created a firestorm. Honestly, we've talked about it so much. Like, fans don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's just like, okay,
no, let's
just get this year done and hopefully it's better next year. But if the team was this bothered by what they believe to be a summer where Michkov did not work out the way he should have and not come to camp in the best of shape, they are not going to reward that by giving him a massive contract extension on the first day that they can give a massive contract extension. They are going to say, "Kid, you want that money? Okay, go crazy this summer, work your tail off. And hey, if at the end of November, your point per game, we'll pay you a little bit more. Like we'll pay you a little bit more than if we would have signed you on July 1, but they're going to think to themselves, we need to keep this kid hungry. We need to keep this kid motivated. And if we just write him a check for $80 million on July 1, they are going to be a bit concerned that will cut down on his motivation to prove the skeptics and the doubters wrong. That is not coming from any inside information that I know. That's just coming from what I know about the way hockey people think. It would blow me away if they sign him to an early deal this summer.
No, it's just common sense. Like, they don't make the big deal out of the thing we're tired of talking about the way they have, unless it was a serious disappointment within the organization. Like, it's swept under the rug. They say, "Kid, no big deal. Let's get you a nutritionist. Let's get you a trainer, and let's just freaking figure this out." And no one ever knows. That's not the way it was handled. So it would be a surprise. Someone I would not be shocked to see sign that extension July 1st, though, is Dan Vladar. We've talked about this a bit. I just don't want to go into like potential contract year. He has a 920 and suddenly we're paying a decent goalie a ton of money. He's 20. He'll be 29 this summer, but he doesn't have a ton of miles on him. It's a really young 28, 29. He's played, I think, under 140 total games. He's got like 127 career starts. It's not as if this is a 500 start 29-year-old goalie. So I don't think breaking down is a huge risk with him. And I just like the idea of having someone dependable to be the starter and or tandem guy with the young goalies who are hopefully going to be coming up in the next few years.
Yeah, what I will say is this comes with risk because let's be honest.
Goalies are weird.
Vladar has been great this year. Before this year, he was not great. No. It is very possible. And look, I'm not expecting this to happen, but I've seen it happen to enough goalies that I can't rule out the possibility where like a guy has a real good year and then falls back to earth. And then next season, he's sitting on an 885 save percentage. And then we're talking about the Dan Vladar contract was a big mistake. They should have waited. So there's absolutely risk there. But I could absolutely see them. I don't think he's going to get signed to a deal on July 1. No. I don't think he's that important. But I could absolutely see him getting signed to a deal in August, when things die down and, Danny gives Vladar's agent a call and is like, "So can you check with your guy and see if he wants to stay in Philly?" And then if he says, "Hell yeah, I want to stay in Philly. I love it here." All right, let's work on a 3, 4, 5-year deal, like a midterm deal. Let's get it done. And then it gets announced in late August. I could absolutely see that happening because I know they like Vladar and I know Vladar likes it in Philly. I'm just saying that, I'm with you in terms of the excitement right now about Vladar, but we shouldn't brush aside the fact that there is a risk that this is that he's just a one-year wonder, that this is not his new normal.
Oh, absolutely. And that would be like, while I like the idea of him around, I'm not talking about a 5-year extension. Like, I am talking 3 years and then see where the hell he is at age 32. Like,
Okay.
32, 33. Can you be into your mid to late 30s, our Brian Elliott, or do we need to now assess that position as well? The last guy I want to talk about, and I have an LOL next to it, but it's true. Rasmus Ristolainen, extension eligible, Chuck.
Oh,
Do
God,
you
I would
see a
die.
world where he doesn't get traded and they start maybe having a conversation?
William, that would be so funny. That would be so funny. Like,
It really would be.
People would be mad, but also it's just so ridiculous that it's one of those
I had to say it.
all you could do is laugh. Like, we're laughing as the world ends kind of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know why you would even think about extending Rasmus Ristolainen. Not because he's not a good player. He has turned himself into a perfectly solid, low end second pair defensive defenseman, and I give him all the credit in the world
Yeah, good
for
job.
doing that late career shift. But number one, the dude can't stay healthy, and number two, he's getting old. It doesn't make any sense to bring him back.
Yeah, like, number one, he can't stay healthy. Number two, he can't stay healthy. You're paying him not to work. I would love that gig, but like, tough to get. So even like looking at what they have, like, you're also going to have the D'Lo, Grunstrom, Abels, Juleson all become UFAs. You assume they all walk.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Abels, like maybe you bring him back to keep him in the 4C mix. Look, is there a world where one of those other guys comes back on a cheap 1-year deal? Like, if it were me, I would shake Nick Delorier's hand, thank him for his service, and let him, either find another team or retire. But could I see a world where the Flyers bring him back on a cheap 1-year deal because they want their big tough guy fighter in the room? Like, yeah, it's plausible to me that they could do that. I would not, but I could see them do it. Grunstrom, same deal. Like, could I see a world where they bring him back at an $800,000 cap to be part of the fourth line rotation? Sure. I probably wouldn't, even though I've liked him, but I could see a world. Same thing with Noah Juleson. Like, I would probably let all 4 of these guys go, but I could see a world where one or more of them comes back on a cheap 1-year deal. Sure.
I get like the idea of, like, they're extras. Juleson can be the 7, Abels can be the 13, 14, whatever, and that doesn't kill you. I'm just looking at all 4 of these guys as, man, like what I said about Nick Seeler times 1,000,000. We just don't have anyone to take that spot. Like, that is a failure of the farm system if we are subbing in Rodrigo Abels and Noah Juleson next year. Like, you need to reassess everything.
I also just think there's an element of, like, this year, assuming they don't go off on a big run coming out at the limit break, but this year was a year where it was a bit of a disappointment, especially in the second half of the season. And there's something to be said about, like, not just running it back on a year that was kind of a disappointment. I'm thinking back to that year where, like, the Flyers gave up tons of goals and had a bad defense, and then they brought everybody on defense back, including Justin Braun, and the only change they made was Tony DeAngelo. Like, yeah, that's the ticket. Team struggles, same defense plus Tony. Like, it's an extremely bad look, and they probably should avoid that.
All right. I do want to talk about one more thing after we hit overtime, Chuck, but just to look at the cap space and situation before we do that. Almost $7 million coming off the books with the Atkinson buyout and the Hayes and Lawton retentions expiring. So right now they're projecting over $41.6 million in cap space with 14 of 23 players signed to the NHL roster. They have a ton of flexibility, and it could even get better if they're able to move some guys out like a Rasmus Ristolainen. And we'll talk about summer priorities after we hit overtime. Go to allphly.com to keep watching. This is just, when I was putting all this together, I was just thinking of the conversation we had yesterday about how Briere might not necessarily see the 1C as immediate a need as many fans, including myself, see it. But he's going to have money, and he's got more assets than he knows what to do with in terms of, like, young and youngish wingers, recently drafted guys. They've spent some draft picks, but they still have a bunch of those. What do you think, with all this flexibility they have, Briere's number one target this summer will be and or should be?
Well, I think it's center. I think it absolutely is center. I think they're going to be actively seeking out a 1C or at least a top 6 center that fits their timeline and fits what they want to build. I'm just not convinced they're going to find that guy because there aren't that many out there. And a lot of the guys who are out there might come with an extremely high price tag, or maybe they're guys that the Flyers just don't like Shane Wright's out there. According to Anthony DeMarco, the Flyers just don't think he's that good. So sometimes that's a situation where your scouts tell you, don't give up the package for that guy because we think he stinks. That could be part of it. But I absolutely think the Flyers are going to be trying to go for a 1C or any quality center that hits the market because they see it's their biggest weakness. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to do it.
If you had to put money on them adding one of these two things, a top 6 center, a 1C/2C, or a top 4 defenseman, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, someone to play 20 plus minutes a night. Doesn't have to be a Norris guy, but someone to pair with Travis Sanheim, kind of move everyone down, fill out the depth chart. Who do you think they're more likely to acquire this summer? Because to me, I just think they might be going D.
Do you really? Yeah, it's a good question. I think they want a center more.
Yes, I think they want that more.
But it's probably easier to get a defenseman that improves the quality of their blue line core, can insulate Sanheim a little bit. Maybe you compare a guy who fits better alongside a Jamie Drysdale. So yeah, I think I would agree with you that maybe it's more likely that they get a top 4 defenseman as opposed to a top 6 center, even if they want a top 6 center more. The one position that I absolutely think they're going to try to address is goaltender to pair with Vladar. Like I think that is the slam dunk. They're going to do it unless Sam Ersson has a monster final 2 months of the year.
Even then, what does that like?
Yeah,
we talked at the carnival, and then we can wrap up. I don't want to go super into overtime when we have no super chats. That's pointless. But when we talked about at the carnival with JJ and Bush, the idea was like, all right, they got 26 games left. How many do you think Ersson's going to get? 8, 10? With the sample size we have, what does a good final couple of weeks really tell you about the guy other than, yeah, he's played in the NHL and doesn't suck every night? Like that, when we can go back 2.5 seasons now and look at, okay, he had like a 6-week run as the backup and tandem guy to Carter Hart, and everything since then has been average or below for the most part, other than his performance in shootouts. I just don't think there's a way. I don't think there's a way to like really bring Ersson back as the guy. You can sign him and waive him and send him to the AHL and figure that out. But like, they have to address the situation, especially if they want to be the team competing for these playoff spots, because they think that's good for development. Like, if that's your plan, then you have to put the team in position to do that. And that is not having Ersson start 30 games next year.
Yeah, William, you are most likely correct.
All right, so we got a couple of super chats we will wrap up with, and then we will be on our way on this Wednesday. They're both from our pal Mike Mellerman. It says, goalies aren't weird. There are specific reasons they succeed and fail. You have one-year wonders because the line between success and failure is razor thin. This is a conversation for a deeper show. I do want to, and maybe it's something we can talk to Mellerman about one day. I want to know if maybe save percentage is kind of going the way of not plus minus where it's useless, but considering how shot quality and volume, like we're taking quality over quantity so much in the league now. Maybe like the G-Sacks are so much more important than save percentage, because save percentages are just going to fluctuate oddly, and maybe it's not the best way to evaluate guys, but it's a bigger conversation.
Yeah,
but goalies are in fact weird. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that. Like, look, save percentage is not save percentage isn't a perfect stat, and obviously, if you have the best expected goals model with all the private data, it's going to be better than save percentage. But I still think save percentage has value as a quick check. And this isn't a perfect comparison, but there's that political truism where it's like democracy is the worst form of government. Except for every other form of government. It's like save percentage is the worst goalie stat except for all of the other goalie stats. Like, that's probably the better way to look at it.
That's fair. All right, and this other one here is also from Mel. Oh no, this is Adam S.
Oh.
Talking about what they're going to do over the summer is hard to get excited about when we're still in this season.
Yeah, but are they? They're not playing hockey right now. This
They're
is like
off.
this is like a mini off season right now.
They're off. That's why we get to look ahead right now. We get to talk about bigger picture stuff because we don't have to worry about what the hell they did last night because they didn't play. And that is a pleasure for Charlie and I because we're not driving each other insane just thinking about, what the hell the team did a night or two ago. All right. Okay, that was it. Oh, I see. That did say 2 from Mellerman and Adam S., not just Mellerman. All right, I get it. Brennan was right. Bill was wrong. That is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. We'll be back here at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And hit that like button. We need more likes out of you people. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast wherever you get those. I am Bill. That is Charlie. Thanks to Brenna. Be excellent to each other.